everyone, welcome to my session. In this session, we are going to learn how you can rapidly modernize your Microsoft workloads on AWS. My name is Sriwanta Attanayaka and I'm a Senior Partner Solution Architect at Amazon focusing around Microsoft technologies. Since the beginning of AWS, we have released new Microsoft-related features and technologies fast and have been helping our Microsoft customers to innovate a lot on AWS. Today, I'm going to showcase you 3 technologies we have released recently. We will learn how to use AWS App2Container to containerize legacy ASP.NET applications, explore AWS .NET Porting Assistant to port .NET Full Framework apps into .NET Core, and finally, learn how to use AWS Babelfish to run SQL Server apps on Amazon Aura with 0 code changes. Let's learn about AWS App2Container. Customers adopt containers to reduce the risk of deployment failures, increase productivity, and more importantly, to improve business agility. Our customers face challenges when they try to containerize legacy ASP.NET application, especially in large migrations. You don't have time to focus on modern applications. Sometimes our customers don't have in-house container expertise. This is where AWS App2Container comes handy. AWS App2Container helps our customers to quickly transform their legacy ASP.NET applications to containers at scale with minimal effort and best practices in place. What we are going to build today? I have a legacy ASP.NET Full Framework app running on legacy Windows 2012. I'm going to install App2Container CLI on this machine and run some commands. It will produce a zip file with all the website artifacts which I can either put into an S3 bucket or copy directly to a Windows VM that can create Windows containers. If your source operating system support containers, you can containerize the app in place without copying the zip file. Once the container is built, you can publish to anywhere you like. It could be on your on-premise environment or Azure or any other place. If you decide to run it on AWS Container Engine like EKS, ECS, you can do so with few commands. Let's now go for a demo and then see how this is done. Here I have a .NET Nuke, a famous complex CMS software. It's an ASP.NET app running on Windows 2012. This is a complex .NET application which you can normally find in an enterprise. I'm going to convert this into a container. I have App2Container CLI installed on this machine. I'm going to call App2Container init to initialize App2Container and provide parameters like working folder, AWS profile name, S3 bucket to upload the content to the region that you operate. My legacy .NET application is running on IIS. As you can see, this machine has 2 websites running on IIS, and one of them is my legacy .NET CMS software. I'm going to get the list of websites I have in my IIS by calling App2Container inventory. I then call App2Container analyze with the website ID to analyze the website. Once the analysis is done, it will produce an analysis JSON file. Some sections of this JSON file are editable. For example, you can change the base image of the container. The default values are good if you are not sure what image to select. Some sections are not editable. This allows you to parameterize and change some aspect of your containerization. I'm now going to call App2Container extract to create a zip file out of the website artifact. Here is the zip file it created. This has all the website content including the DLLs. As Windows 2012 does not have container support, I'm going to copy paste the zip file into a temporary Windows 2019 machine which has container support. This way, I can build the Windows container image. If your source machine has container support, you can build the image in place. In the new machine, I call app-to-container containerize and provide the zip file which had the website content. Once the containerization is done, it creates the container image which you can use in any other platform. Once you have the Docker image, sky is the limit for deployment. It also creates a deployment configuration file which you can later alter to change the way deployment happens in AWS. You can change parameters like the amount of CPU, a memory allocated for the containers, and which AWS container orchestration engine this container will be deployed. To deploy the container into AWS, you can call app-to-container generate and provide the application ID. If you have any issue, it will show it in the log file. In my case, it threw an error saying that I don't have permission to deploy containers. I correct the issue and rerun the application to deploy the solution into AWS. When I explore ECS, you will find a container repository being created. I go to ECS. The deployment also created my ECS task definition with correct amount of memory and CPU allocation. I manually created the ECS service with a load balancer in front and pointed my task definition. Let's now check the load balancer URL. As you can see, my legacy website is now running on containers. The next thing we are going to learn is AWS Port-in Assistant for .NET. There are numerous reasons why customers are moving from .NET Full Framework on Windows to .NET Core on Linux. First, customer saves money on Microsoft licensing. Second, .NET Core apps on Linux are built for cloud-native scalable applications. You can also expect a decent performance gain when running .NET Core on Linux. Another important reason why customers are moving into .NET Core is that .NET 4.0 is the last .NET Full Framework supported by Microsoft. After the support period is over, you anyway have to move into .NET Core. AWS has own in-house built ARM processor called Graviton. .NET Core loves ARM processors. Our second generation Graviton processors has 40% better price performance over comparable current gen x86 instances. To learn more about ARM processors performance on .NET Core 5, feel free to visit the link given in the QR code. Finally, .NET Core has an awesome roadmap. You can expect long-term supported framework coming into market every 2 years. You now know why we must move into .NET Core. To help our customers move into .NET Core, we have a tool called .NET Port-in Assistant. It scans your programs, identifies incompatibilities, and gives you an assessment report. It also helps you to migrate your .NET Full Framework apps into .NET Core. Remember, you need to have your source code in hand to do the migration. Here I have opened the famous legacy Orchard CMS project using .NET Port-in Assistant. It gives you an overview of incompatibility packages and APIs. This allows you to assess the complexity of the migration. You can drill down into project level and explore incompatibility packages and APIs and get an idea of the migration by looking at the portability score. Higher the portability score, easy it is to migrate the project. You can also check the NuGet package compatibilities. The tool is smart enough to provide you some recommended replacement packages. In this case, I have Log4j 2.0.3 which is incompatible with .NET Core. but the tool has suggested me that I can fix the issue by upgrading into Log4j 2.0.6 with .NET Core support. You can even drill down into API level and isolate which exact function is not compatible. The number of source files and calls gives you an idea how much dependency your program has on different methods. Similarly, you can go into source file levels and identify incompatibilities. If you wish, you can go into code view and explore where exactly the incompatibility code being used and some suggestions to fix the issue. You can also get a dependency graph where it shows different dependencies between projects. The recommended approach to refactor is to start with the node with a lot of arrow pointing inwards and slowly move outwards to projects with less arrows. For example, in this project, you will start your refactoring with orchard.core or orchard.framework. Let's now go through the most exciting news from re:Invent 2020 for our Microsoft customers. AWS Babelfisher is a new service that allows our customers to run their SQL Server-based application on Amazon Aura for Postgre. Amazon Aura is one of the fastest growing services in AWS history. Thousands of customers have moved away from their legacy all-guarded vendors like Oracle and Microsoft and chose open source technologies like Postgres. Previously, there was one major challenge that our customers faced when they migrated their SQL Server application into open source technologies like Postgres. Imagine you have an application connected to an SQL Server. Let's say you want to migrate the database engine from SQL Server into Amazon Aura Postgre. It may be due to the fact that you don't like to be locked into a vendor and want to reduce your database cost, still maintaining the performance. AWS provides some great tools to migrate databases. You can easily migrate database schema with the help of AWS Schema Conversion tool. The tool is smart enough to provide complex translations, provide alternatives, and more importantly, suggest where issues can pop up. For example, it can migrate your tables, stored procedures, triggers, to name a few. Once the database schema is migrated, you can use AWS Database Migration Service or DMS to move data from source database to the destination. All these tools have been in the market for years and are very matured products. The challenge comes when the customer wants to migrate their application into new database. Previously, the customer had to rewrite the application, rewrite SQL command, change NuGet packages, and switch drivers. The task took a lot of developer time and was not for the faint-hearted. Let's learn some challenges an application porting technology can face. Let's say you create a product table in SQL Server and it maintains the product price as money data type. The money data type has a precision of 4 decimal places in SQL Server. If you add a product with price, let's say $12.8182, it will save the value with a 4 decimal place accuracy. Let's now query for the data in SQL Server for the product, let's say less than $30. In SQL Server, you will get the product and the price is accurate for 4 decimal places. If you also query for the data in Postgres, you will get the same product. However, if you save the data as Postgres money data type, the precision is only 2 decimal places. We need to be extra careful to preserve the correctness of the application when migrating the application into the new database technologies. Imagine you have an application connected to SQL Server. You want to connect it to Aura Postgres and slowly migrate the database and application. In this process, you want the legacy application code to remain as it is, client libraries to remain as it is, client drivers do not need to change, and finally, new application code can be directly written into Postgres SQL. What you imagine is what exactly Babelfish delivers. You can keep using existing queries, and the Babelfish translation layer will understand SQL Server proprietary TSQL commands. This will accelerate your migration since you have to do little or no code change to your application to migrate into Postgres databases. More importantly, you can keep using your familiar tools. We will also make this project open source under Apache 2.0 license so that you can keep driving your innovation agenda. We will release it on GitHub and will provide a transparent roadmap to accelerate future releases. When we create Babelfish for Aura, we had a few design tenets. First, we will not compromise on the correctness. If there's a situation where we can't translate TSQL commands accurately, let's say due to technology impedance mismatch or lack of similar features, instead of compromising the correctness of the query, we will return an error so that you can make an informed decision to handle that error. This will also give you a confidence that your application is behaving as expected. Second, you will get wire protocol compatibility, which means that application can work without changing the database drivers, and you don't need to install special software or libraries on the OS. Third, you will get interoperability so that you can get Postgres functionality from TSQL and TSQL functionality from Postgres code. I'm pretty sure by now you have a lot of questions to ask, such as whether the triggers and stored procedures will work. What about cursors and nested transactions? How will different data types will function? In the initial release, we will try to get most of critical features and data types working. It may not be 100% feature rich. However, you can get a lot done and accelerate migration with the initial features we will release. Since you can run SQL Server and Postgres side by side, you can slowly and carefully do your migrations. The best way to learn it is to go through a demo. Let's jump into a demo and learn how Babelfish works. I'm in my SQL Server Management Studio, and I have connected to Amazon Aura Postgre through Babelfish endpoint. If you get the version of the database, you will notice it returned Babelfish for Aura Postgre with SQL Server compatibility. You can see the database engine is different. Let's run a simple SQL Server command. I'm going to create a simple table and insert few items. All these commands are written in Microsoft SQL Server TSQL and follow TSQL syntax. Let's first execute the create table. It was successful. Let's now select the insert command and insert some products into product table. It is also successful. I'm now going to open dbeaver and connect into the same Aura database. dbeaver is a famous open source database studio similar to SQL Server Management Studio. If I now select version, it gives the version of the database it is connected into. In this case, PostgreSQL 11.9 running on Linux. Let's now write a simple PostgreSQL query to select some products. Select all products, order by price, limit by something like 5. You will get the same data out you inserted a moment ago. Let's try to do more advanced queries and use more advanced features. Let's say we are going to create a trigger. I'm going to create a trigger that gets executed when you run the update operation. When you run an update, it is going to select the product that has been updated and return it. In this command, the inserted has the set of rows that got updated. Let's execute this command and then create the trigger. The trigger got created in Amazon Aura Postgre. I'm now going to make the update operation. I'm setting the price equals price plus 1, where the product ID, let's say 1. When you run the update, you can see it return the updated product and the price has been updated. You can execute the select operation to check the values. As you can see, the price has been updated to 102.555. Let's now use even more advanced syntax. SQL Server, as any other database, has this concept of transactions. Let's start a few nested transactions and select the transaction count. What we are expecting is an incremental transaction count. SQL Server has this rollback function which will roll back all the nested transactions, including the outermost transaction. As you can see, when we run it, the transaction count went from 1 to 3 and we roll back it to 0 when it roll back it. So transaction works as expected. Let's develop an application and then see how developer experience is going to look like. Let's start Visual Studio, and I have a sample WinForm application with SQL Server related classes. Let's change what happens when you click refresh button. I use the same .NET classes I used to connect into SQL Server to connect into Babelfish. The connection string is also same. I open the connection, I create a command and set the command text to select the product information. I then execute the reader, load a table and set my data grid data source to data table I populated. When I run the app and refresh the data, I get the data as expected. Instead of writing pure TSQL statement, let's write a stored procedure to get the products with the price under a certain value. Let's create the stored procedure. I'm now going to make some modification to execute the stored procedure instead of the TSQL command. If you are a developer with SQL Server programming background, you will see that I'm using the same SQL Server classes to write to Babelfish code. This time the command text is going to be the name of the stored procedure, command type is going to be the stored procedure, and I'm going to pass the parameters I read from the text box. So all the products with prices less than the price given in the text box get selected. Let's now run the application again, put a price like 100 and then click the button. You can see the data grid got populated with all the products less than 100. When you put 10, it shows all the products less than 10. You just saw how you can use existing classes and code written to SQL Server as it is to interact with Amazon Aura through Babelfish. To help our customers migrate and modernize their Microsoft applications on AWS, we have multiple partner-led funding programs. These funding will assist you to assess your Microsoft application portfolio, create proof of concept and migrate. We also have funding programs to refactor your application and rewrite it to suit modern cloud-native architecture. Please reach out to your AWS account managers or partners to discuss how to access these funding. So, what did we learn today? We learned how to use App2Container to easily containerize your legacy ASP.NET applications running on .NET Full Framework. You can use the container images App2Container generates in any other cloud providers. We learned why you should move into .NET Core and how to use AWS .NET Porting Assistant to port your .NET Full Framework code into .NET Core. Finally, we learned features of Doublefish, which allows you to port your SQL Server based application into Amazon Aura Postgre. If you want to further enhance your knowledge about containers and serverless technologies, feel free to visit our free digital courses available online. You will find some interesting labs and hands-on activities that you can go deep into container technologies. As part of AWS Microsoft team, I'm super excited to bring these technologies to you. We will keep innovating on behalf of our Microsoft customers to excel them in their AWS journey. Thank you very much for sticking with me till the end of this presentation. I hope you enjoyed my session. Feel free to get in contact and I can answer your questions. Please remember to leave some feedback by completing the survey at the end. We will continuously use your feedback to improve the content. Thank you.